Hello, world, and welcome to Cinema Nostalgica, where we break down nostalgic hidden gems. Today, we will be discussing the 1999 film Brokedown Palace. This movie is very nostalgic and it stuck with me as a child, so let's try to figure out why. I will break down this deep dive into four parts: the plot summary, fake friendships, who really did it, and the real life events that inspired the movie. So let's dive deeper and enter into the Brokedown Palace. Just before we begin, if you are watching this video, I am assuming that you've seen Brokedown Palace before. If you have not, I recommend pausing this video and watching it now because there will be spoilers ahead. The movie begins and introduces us to Alice, played by Claire Danes, and Darlene, played by Kate Beckinsale. They are childhood best friends from Ohio, and from the very beginning, there is a power imbalance in their dynamic. Alice is the quote-unquote bad one, the rule breaker, and Darlene is the good friend and the obedient daughter. They are soon to graduate, and with Darlene going to college out of state, Alice wants to make their senior trip special. So Alice proposes a plan to ditch their friends, who are all going to Hawaii, and take Darlene to Bangkok, Thailand. Alice makes a point to say she wanted to go to Bangkok with Darlene so that Darlene would have a memorable trip and ultimately will not forget about her as she moves on to college. Alice tells Darlene to lie to her father and not tell him she's going to Thailand, instead making him still think she is going to Hawaii. Darlene is hesitant at first, fearful of telling her father this huge lie, as she should, but she ultimately follows Alice's lead, a pattern that continues throughout the film. Once in Thailand, the girls fall into a dreamlike haze of tropical beaches, cocktails, and taking in the culture. However, a scheme gone wrong by Alice, who is trying to get free drinks and sit poolside at a luxury hotel, leads them straight into the arms of Nick Parks, an Australian man who is attractive and charming, yet who is also a con man himself, as he quote-unquote rescues the girls by putting their drinks on another stolen man's room key. As the movie develops, we see a shift happen, especially with Alice, who is normally the dominant one. She suddenly watches as Darlene becomes enamored with Nick, and there's an unspoken tension here as both girls are attracted to him, but Alice isn't used to being sidelined, and we will get more into this dynamic later in the video. When Nick invites them to Hong Kong for a luxurious getaway, Darlene immediately agrees, but Alice hesitates, telling Darlene that she should just go by herself. Perhaps this reaction is out of jealousy or a need to maintain control, but this is also something that we will get into a little bit later. Both girls do agree to go to Hong Kong, flying by themselves and meeting Nick Parks there. However, their trip comes to a sudden, brutal halt at the airport when Thai authorities uncover heroin in their bags. The girls are arrested, thrown into the country's unforgiving legal system, and sentenced to 33 years in prison. The horror of their situation is amplified by the claustrophobic, grimy setting of the Thai prison, where they are stripped of their dignity and their hope. Throughout the film, we follow the girls as they navigate life in a Thai women's prison, encountering fellow foreign inmates who become friends, clashing with enemies, enduring a failed escape attempt which added 15 years to their sentence, and of course, the unforgettable and deeply traumatizing moment when a cockroach crawls into Darlene's ear. After a strenuous court battle and overwhelming guilt, Alice decides to take the blame for the entire situation and admit to all the guilt just to set Darlene free. She agrees to do her time and Darlene's time, a total of 66 years, and Darlene gets pardoned and set free. Now, after you got the gist of the summary plot, let's dive in a little bit deeper and let's talk about the fake friendship that I have seen between Alice and Darlene. At first glance, Darlene and Alice fit into clear archetypes. Darlene is the sheltered, again, quote-unquote good girl with a loving father, a stable home, and a moral compass. She's the nice one, who is naive, inexperienced, can't think for herself, and allows Alice to run all over her. Point in case the planning of the Thailand trip. Darlene is hesitant about going by expressing that her dad is already weary of her college situation, and we learn later is and perhaps have always been disapproving of her friendship with Alice. Darlene knows deep down that she shouldn't go on this sporadic trip, but she listens to Alice instead of her own instincts. This moment matters because it foreshadows how easily she could be manipulated. If she had been honest with her father or pushed back against Alice more, they probably never would have ended up in Thailand to begin with. Darlene's fatal flaw is that she seems to not stand up for herself or voice her true opinion on how she feels regarding certain situations. Did she even want to go to Thailand, or did she just go along with it because Alice wanted to? We see the girls have a large friend group, all of whom are going to Hawaii for their last hurrah before everyone goes off to college. And you have to admit, ditching those friends only to appease Alice is a little concerning. We know Alice's motive for going to Thailand, that is to create a memorable trip for Darlene so that she won't forget about her. And that motive alone is very selfish and controlling. It also shows that both girls are insecure. Alice is insecure about losing her friend, or more so about being left behind. And Darlene is insecure by having to put it all on the line to appease her bossy friend. It's a shame that the one time Darlene does stick up for herself is when it's going to Hong Kong with Nick Parks. Now let's have a closer look at Alice. She is the wild child, the troublemaker. She comes from a single father household, as we learn her mother died when she was 7. Her dad is hardly concerned about his daughter's well-being, and his behavior is shown as he nonchalantly agrees to her even going to Thailand to begin with. He allowed her to go just because Darlene was going, yet he didn't even talk to Darlene's parents to confirm or get their itinerary. Her father is either absent or neglectful, while Darlene has a wealthy, involved father who cares deeply for her. And we see this carelessness in Alice's father later in the film as well, when he doesn't even really try to get her out of the Bangkok prison or speak to Yankee Hank, the lawyer that they hired. He didn't even bother to visit Bangkok or visit her while she was in prison. In contrast to Darlene's father, Alice's father is completely out of the picture. We never even hear anything about him, which subtly implies Alice never had the same safety net that Darlene has. She acts tough, but her rebellious streak is less about confidence and more about masking her deep-seated insecurities. And there is that crucial scene where Darlene's father does visit the girls in the Bangkok prison, and Darlene's father is livid at Alice, screaming that this was always in her story, that she would always lie and be manipulative and say that it wasn't her fault, when clearly it was. There is some animosity that Alice has against Darlene. Is it because she has a father who is there for her? Does she resent that Darlene has a life where people protect her? Or does she hate that she has to fend for herself while Darlene can just call her dad and her support system for help? And I'm not gonna lie, Alice does do some shady stuff to Darlene throughout the film. I think that she does start to manipulate Darlene and her sense of security. We do see that she convinces Darlene to lie to her dad, break the rules, and go on this reckless adventure. Because if Darlene starts rebelling, then suddenly she's no better than Alice. We see their differences come to a head when Nick is introduced into the picture. At first it seems like Nick and Alice are going to be an item. They both exhibit a zest for life and maturity that Darlene seems to lack. However, at the dinner party, Alice catches Darlene kissing Nick. Alice is used to being the ringleader, the one who takes all the risks and makes all the decisions, but the moment Darlene connects with Nick, Alice is sidelined. Darlene immediately chases after Alex to get her approval, and Alice is immediately cold. In a sense, I could kind of understand Alice's disposition against Darlene. It was clear that her and Nick had a connection, and now Darlene is getting all the attention. However, the next steps that Alice makes is really uncalled for. She is obviously hurt, but instead of dealing with it, she just leaves the party. She essentially just leaves her best friend alone with Nick Parks. And mind you, Nick Parks is only someone that they have known for, a day? He's a complete stranger. And why does this matter? It's because Alice knows that Darlene is naive and too trusting. She knows Darlene doesn't have the street smarts to navigate the situation safely. It's almost like she's setting her up to get played, and that's exactly what happens. And this moment is way more sinister than it appears. Alice knows Darlene. She knows that she is way too trusting and just overall over her head in this situation. And we all know, and I believe Alice knows this as well, but Nick is a man who could easily take advantage of her. Yet, instead of looking out for her friend, she walks away. Why? Perhaps this is a test. She wants to test Darlene to see if she'll mess up. Or maybe she wants to punish her for taking Nick's attention. Either way, Alice chooses self-interest over friendship, and the consequences of this are devastating. If Alice was a good friend, she wouldn't have left Darlene at the party. She would have just sucked it up, knowing that when you are overseas in an unknown place, you don't just leave your friend with unknown guys. If Alice was there, maybe Darlene wouldn't have went home with Nick Parks that night and developed this crazy infatuation with him. Maybe they would have just danced, drank, maybe made out on the dance floor a little bit, and then went their separate ways. In my eyes, Alice broke rule number 1 of girl code, which is if you go there together, you leave together. Jumping around this storyline a little bit, I do have to ask the question, did Alice sleep with Nick after all of this? The movie never confirms it, but there is reason to believe that she did. When Alice bumps into Nick at the market, their exchange is loaded with subtext. The way that she looks at him, the way that he smirks, it suggests that something is happening between them. Did Alice sleep with him that day, or maybe on a different day? Maybe she thought she had some kind of control over the situation, that she was in on the con rather than being the victim of it. If so, she was horribly wrong. Later in the film, we do find out that Alice was at his hotel. And I think that Alice did hook up with Nick. She was seen being very flirtatious with him at the market, and Nick even paid for her souvenirs. But again, we do not know this for sure. But given Alice's trend of risky and selfish behavior, I wouldn't be surprised. And now going back in the timeline a little bit, we do have the scene when Darlene first initially proposes the Hong Kong trip to Alice. This scene is a pivotal moment in Brokedown Palace, revealing the cracks in Alice and Darlene's friendships and the underlying imbalance of their dynamic. Darlene is fresh off a romantic high from her night with Nick Parks, and she is swept up in the excitement and of the possibility of it all. For once, she is taking the lead. She is making plans, making a choice for herself rather than following Alice's impulses. She asks Alice to come to Hong Kong with her, eager to extend her time with Nick and just to see where this new romance might lead. Alice, however, is still simmering with resentment. She hasn't fully processed the way Nick sidelined her the other night, and her bruised ego manifests as cold and indifferent. Instead of voicing her feelings outright, she lashes out passive-aggressively, telling Darlene that she should just go to Hong Kong alone, feigning support while subtly pushing her friend towards a bad decision. The idea of Darlene traveling alone with Nick is reckless and dangerous, but Alice, in her agitation, either doesn't care or simply wants to punish Darlene for getting Nick's attention over her. What makes this moment particularly twisted is Alice's casual cruelty by, again, suggesting that Darlene should just go alone. She is essentially throwing her friend into a situation that can be unsafe, all because of her own hurt feelings. She isn't thinking about what's best for Darlene. She's being spiteful, trying to make her feel guilty for choosing Nick. But then, for the first time in their friendship, Darlene stands up for herself with the simple question of, how many times have I done this kind of stuff for you? She forces Alice to confront this selfishness in her behavior. This isn't just about Hong Kong. It's about their entire friendship. Darlene has followed Alice's lead countless times, indulging on her whims, tagging along on her reckless adventures, and now she wants something for herself, and Alice is trying to sabotage it. Alice's reaction is relenting, but she does agree to go and shows that deep down she knows Darlene is right. But the damage is done. The scene makes it very clear. Their friendship is not an equal one, and Alice's inability to truly celebrate Darlene's happiness without resentment will have devastating consequences. And in this moment in time, I do believe that Alice is jealous of Darlene's life, or maybe just Darlene as a person. That much is very clear from the beginning. Even in the opening scenes, we do see that Alice is a little jealous of Darlene, maybe even just going to college or having a fruitful life ahead of her. And Alice doesn't think that she will get that, or maybe she thinks she doesn't deserve it. It seems like it's a core of bitterness, resentment, and an unconscious desire to bring Darlene down to her level. She might not even realize what she's doing, but her actions show a pattern of pushing Darlene into situations she knows she cannot handle, while maintaining just enough innocence to act like she did nothing wrong. Moving on to the girls getting caught in the airport with the several keys of smack, you do have to wonder who is at fault here, what really happened, where did the drugs come from? Let's break down a few theories. One of the most fascinating aspects of Brokedown Palace is that it never truly gives us a definitive answer about who put the drugs in the bag. This ambiguity forces the audience to consider some possibilities. Let's go through them. Let's look at Darlene first. At first glance, she seems like the responsible, sheltered girl who gets caught in Alice's mess. But when you take a closer look, Darlene is actively enabling Alice's reckless behavior and makes her own questionable decisions as well. It does seem very clear to me that she falls for Nick Park's game, despite and ignoring all of the red flags. They know he is a con artist to some extent because he stole someone's room key to pay for their drinks. We also know that Nick Parks feeds her compliments, makes her feel special, and gives her attention. But instead of being cautious and being aware of this love-bombing tactic, Darlene lets herself be flattered and doesn't question his motives. When the girls are caught with the drugs, they are in these little tin boxes, and it kind of reminds me of what tea or coffee gets stored in. So let's just think back. Darlene was with Nick the night before she asked Alice to go to Hong Kong with her. They had a wild and sexually crazed night. During that night, did Nick give her those boxes to bring to Hong Kong? Did she just not notice them? Maybe he snuck them into her bag? And if she was given to them, or if they were snuck in her bag, did she just not open them? Or perhaps was she alerted to what was inside and just went along with it? We see her, quote unquote, just go along with stuff with Alice all the time. Did she have the same mentality when it came to Nick Parks? Did she not want to upset him? She was obviously really excited to go to Hong Kong, and I don't believe that she would have let Alice say no. I think she definitely knew that one way or another, she would go to Hong Kong to meet up with Nick Parks. So it does lead me to believe that maybe she did go along with it. I mean, we do see her being super naive and super out of her depths when it comes to Nick Park's manipulation. So in my eyes, I could totally see her being manipulated by him. Now, we do not know this for sure, as the film does not give us a clear conclusion on how the drugs got into the backpack, but I would not be surprised if he either slipped them into her bag or he convinced her to take part into trafficking drugs. Bottom line, she's the one who packed the bag, and she was the one who was most emotionally vulnerable and easiest to manipulate. And we also know that she was really, really excited to go to Hong Kong. Why would this be the case? Of course, she really wants to see where this relationship might go with Nick, and maybe the drugs were part of that manipulation. Maybe it is a transactional situation where the only way that she can see where things go with Nick is if she does him this little favor. Or maybe he could have just been like, hey, I have these really cute decorative boxes. Would you like them? Don't look inside of them, but here you go. We really don't know, but when it comes to Darlene, I do think that she is so vulnerable and so easy to manipulate that it really wouldn't take a lot to just let her go along with stuff. Now, let's look at Alice. We do know that she's reckless and has a history of making bad decisions. She may have been promised money. It is clear that Alice may have been strapped for cash. She doesn't have the brightest future compared to her counterpart Darlene, and maybe she needed the money. After Alice accepts the Hong Kong trip, she leaves the hotel and Darlene goes to sleep. And the next scene is where we see her casually bumping into Nick at the market. There's actually a lot going on in this scene. When Alice is walking to the market, she's actually followed by Nick Parks. Alice is seen shopping with the yellow backpack. And in one clip, we do see those blue tin cans, and those were the cans that the heroin was stashed in. So I wonder if this is when Nick Park set up his master plan, or perhaps Alice was involved in it. Her relationship with Nick hints at a deeper involvement, as we had discussed before, and as we know that she was spotted at Nick's hotel. When did she go there? Was it for sex, or was it a scheme to smuggle drugs? We know Alice is risky. Perhaps she knew about the Hong Kong trip already and denied the offer. But when she heard Darlene pleading with her to go, she relented and went. Now, let's look at an alternative theory that may or may not have been discussed, but it's that the taxi drivers did it. Let me digress. The taxi drivers show up to pick them up from the hotel, and their behavior is suspicious, to say the least. They easily could have planted the drugs while the girls were distracted. There were several men involved with carrying and transporting the girls' bag from their room downstairs to the taxi. Comes up to the girls' room and offers to bring their bags down. When Alice opens the door, she is surprised and taken a little off guard, suggesting she didn't even know a taxi service was called. The men exchanged side-eyed looks, and the man who brought the bags down didn't even drive the girls to the airport. He just got their bags and put it in the car. Also, several men were outside arguing, and that just added to the heightened anxiety of the scene. As you see, there's just a lot of activity going on, a lot of rushing, and just a lot of shady behaviors that easily could have been noted to have been suspicious behavior for planting drugs on two naive American girls. And then, of course, we have the Thai government working with Nick Parks, which is most likely the answer. Nick was working with authorities, using Alice and Darlene as distractions while the real drugs mules pass through. We see one of these drug mules be interviewed by Yankee Hank in Hong Kong. And that's what the movie suggests. The film makes it clear that their trial was rigged from the start and that the girls were never going to get let off, because that would mean that they would have to actually investigate on who Nick Parks is and all these mules going in and out of the Thailand airport. I do think that the movie does suddenly hint that the girls being involved, at least one of them, but again, the film doesn't give us that conclusion. But one thing is for sure, even though the Thai authorities most likely set up Alice and Darlene, when they were at the airport, the authorities pulled out the drugs from their backpack out of those tin boxes. How did the tin boxes get there? Was it Alice, was it Darlene, or was it the taxi drivers? We do not know, but either way, we cannot escape the fact that they did have drugs on them. We even see this later in the film, that the authorities inflated the amount of drugs that they had, but that doesn't take away from the fact that they had drugs with them. The Thai authorities are not magicians and just pulling out bags of heroin out of the hat. They were in the bag. We saw them take it out of that yellow backpack. Now, how did they get there? We'll never know. Before we close out this section, I do want to mention a few fatal mistakes the girls make, and the root of those mistakes is mainly linked to their privilege. Their sense of being invincible and their entitlement leads them to grossly underestimate the gravity of their situation. Let's look at Darlene signing the confession in Thai. By the time Darlene and Alice are arrested, they are completely out of their depths. They are trapped in a foreign country, they don't speak the language, and they don't understand the legal system. The Thai police are not interested in whether they're innocent, they just want a quick resolution. And the power of fear and intimidation haunts Darlene once again as she goes along with what this detective is saying. She doesn't ask for a translator, a lawyer, or even have a second to think. Instead, she signs away this confession immediately, believing wrongly that this will help her. This is especially frustrating because even though she is naive, she's not a child and she should have known better. She trusts the system that is actively screwing her over. And again, one of Darlene's biggest weaknesses is that she believes that the world will be fair to her. She comes from a privileged background, and throughout her life, she's always been protected by authority figures, her father, maybe even teachers, or just being in a privileged position in the United States. But Thailand doesn't operate in those same rules. She assumes that if she just cooperates, the system will recognize her innocence and let her go. This is a fatal mistake because in reality, the Thai police just want a signed confession and close the case. And as soon as she signs, it's over. By putting her name on that document, she admits guilt in the eyes of the Thai legal system. She doesn't even know what she just confessed to. The police use it against her in court, and the judge doesn't care about her excuses. Even if the confession was coerced, it still seals their fate. She thinks being good will save her, and this is also going back to her fatal flaw. Darlene has been raised to believe that if she does the right thing, everything will work out for her. But this isn't America. This isn't her father's world where her good girl reputation can protect her, and the Thai authorities care nothing about her innocence, her tears, or her regret. She signs away her fate because she cannot grasp that the world doesn't always play fair. This moment proves that Darlene isn't just a victim, but she is an active participant in her own downfall by thinking that her privilege will protect her. She doesn't question the situation, she doesn't think critically, and she doesn't fight back. And then we have Alice, the street smart one, who stands up to the Thai police and refuses to sign the confession in Thai. But while she is doing this, she is arrogant and nasty and starts using curse words. She is also coming from a privileged background that she can do or say whatever she wants. She has no respect for the officers or how her behavior can be used against her, which is exactly what happens later in the film. In the first trial with Yankee Hank representing the girls, everything was going great until the hotel pool boy from the luxury hotel was put on the stand to testify that the girls, mostly Alice in this case, was stealing and lying. Her karma comes back to bite her in the ass, and it's a hard scene to watch as they were so close to being freed. But even in that situation, Alice couldn't control her behavior and is loudly cursing and making a scene in a courtroom. Again, tying her behavior to characteristics such as being a criminal. She needs to remember that she is not in America, and with all the cultural differences at play, she really needs to think before she acts. Alice has shown throughout the film that she has a superiority complex when it comes to traveling and breaking the rules. When she steals drinks at the pool, she dismisses Darlene's concern with, "Oh, they don't care," talking about the employees of the luxury hotel. This line is incredibly revealing. It suggests that Alice views the Thai people as passive, as people who don't care about rules in the same way that Westerners might. She assumes that she and Darlene are above the system, that they could bend the rules without consequences. This moment foreshadows the entire movie's central tragedy, that Alice doesn't respect Thailand laws, and she pays the price for it. And again, this subtle moment of entitlement shows that she has no real respect for the cultures. She treats Thailand as her playground, assuming that there won't be any consequences to her reckless behavior. But to Alice, this recklessness isn't just about fun, it's about power. She wants to feel untouchable. She wants to prove she's savvier than Darlene and that she knows how to navigate the world better. Knowing that Darlene is following her lead is proof that she might be right. And moving on to part 4, the real world parallels and the true stories behind the film. And I think this is why this movie has stuck with me. But let's just go through the real world inspiration to the film. Back in July 1990, Patricia Cahill and Karen Smith were two young women from England who were arrested at Bangkok's airport after authorities discovered approximately 26 kilograms, which is 66 pounds, of heroin concealed in their luggage. At the time of their arrest, Cahill was 17 years old and Smith was 19. The substantial quantity of heroin was, at the time, the biggest haul ever recorded in Thailand. The English girls became fast friends in April 1990, just a few months before the incident, and they bonded over their shared love of the nightlife and frequenting local clubs. Their trip to Thailand was not a typical vacation either. They were enticed by a British man they met in the nightclub scene, who was described as a glamorous businessman. He offered them an all-expenses-paid trip to Thailand, arranging their passports and their tickets. However, he backed out at the last minute, leaving the two women alone to embark on the journey. Unbeknownst to the families, they thought that they were in Scotland, but Cahill and Smith traveled to Thailand under the allure of this unexpected opportunity. Upon attempting to depart Thailand, customs officers at the airport discovered the concealed heroin in their luggage. Both women claimed that they were unaware of the contents, asserting that the packages had been given to them by a man they met in Birmingham, but had asked them to transport the items to Gambia. Despite their claims of ignorance, the Thai authorities proceeded with severe charges. During the trial, Smith pled guilty and received a 25-year prison sentence. Cahill, maintaining her innocence, was tried separately due to her status as a minor and was sentenced to 18 years and 9 months in prison. Their convictions drew a lot of media attention and highlighted the harsh penalties for drug trafficking in Thailand. While in prison, both women adapted to their circumstances. After serving approximately 3 years, both women were granted pardons in July 1993, and this clemency was influenced by the humanitarian considerations and the diplomatic relationship between Thailand and the UK. And upon their release, they were departed back to the UK. But this case is definitely a cautionary tale about the perils of being naive and the severe consequences of being entangled in international drug trafficking schemes. Brokedown Palace is more than just a thriller. It's a haunting study of friendship, privilege, and consequences. Alice and Darlene, as well as Patricia Cahill and Karen Smith, serves as a cautionary tale and a reminder that the people we trust and the choices we make can seal our fate in ways that we would never expect. So, who's truly to blame here? Is it Alice? Is it Darlene? Is it the system? Or is it a combination of all three? But in the end, it doesn't really even matter who physically put the drugs in the bag. If we do blame it all on Alice, is it her history of poor choices that created this perfect storm? Or can we put the blame on Darlene for being naive and getting caught up with this guy who may have planted drugs on her? Yet, can we place all the blame on Alice or all the blame on Darlene? Even though the girls did not intend for things to escalate this far, their influence on each other contributed to their tragic fate. So thank you all so much for watching. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know if you had seen this movie before and if it stuck with you just like how it stuck with me. And I will see you in the next video.